Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Thomas back at you with another video. And today we have a new IPO out, or well, one that's in the process of being developed. Duolingo has applied for their IPO. And there's a little bit to cover here. I do want to go through what the company is looking like, maybe what we can expect. It's very early in the stages. As you can see, I have it pulled up here on Robinhood, and they do not have their price ranges out yet. So as of right now, all we've got is the initial filling, but we shall see. We shall see very soon. As always, with these IPOs, they're huge for the companies. They're always beneficial for them. But I think I might make a follow-up video after this, just when we get those prices in, just to see what we can expect, see if there's, reasonable price expectations there. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into some of the facts. So this article on CNBC discusses it, and it says that the revenue at the Pittsburgh-based company rose 129% last year. And the company brought in 55.4 million in revenue for the quarter ending on March 31st, a 97% jump from last year, while net losses widened more than sixfold to 13.5 million, according to the filing. And I mean, all of you are probably fairly familiar with Duolingo. Maybe people more my age are more familiar with it. I used it in high school, and it's a language learning app. We've got a ton of languages on it. I think most people, such as myself, we just end up using it for Spanish just because we're not good at Spanish. But nonetheless, the app itself I actually do like. I think it's a good way to learn if you really want to. Now, languages are not my forte, but that's a whole other conversation. However, the app is pretty big. It is one of the most popular language apps out there. And it says on here that the company derived 51% of its revenue from Apple's App Store and 19% from Google Play. So it's really big among iPhone users, which is a pro, especially with Apple putting out a new phone all the time. It's always a good thing, because if they need to get those downloads back in again. And like I said before, it's so far, like on paperwork, it looks really good. It's had more than 500 million downloads, offers 40 languages. It raised 35 million in November, and the ownership of the stock, which is the real thing that I want to get into. It has two classes of stock, Class A and Class B, each worth 20 votes per share. And then 14.8% of the stock itself is owned by the CEO and the CTT. So this right here is their documentation, the official documentation on the IPO itself. Now, all of it's not filled out, obviously. We'll have to wait till they get more information out. But as of right now, this is how it stands. So as you can see right here, 14.8% of it is owned by Louis von Ahn. I probably butchered his name there, and so I apologize to him for that. But he owns about 14.8% of it, and then Severin Hacker owns another 14.8. So Dr. Ahn is the CEO, and Severin Hacker is the CTT, and so pretty big holdings. And then obviously another 30%, about 30%, 29 to be precise, 29%, all current executive officers and directors as group. So 12 other people make up about 29% of the voting. So that's good and all. Those are all board directors. They don't really matter so much. They're going to be voting in the best interest of the company. That doesn't matter to us too much. What does matter is the investors of the company and the current holders. So we don't know what the current not the current, but the future holders are going to look like. They could be essentially anyone, because these shares have not been sold out yet. But the current holders, the one big one that stood out to me, so it's this one here that holds about 20% of the shares, and it's New View Capital Fund. And so I just went over to their page just to see what they're about, and they're a technology-based company. They do various things. It looks like they are involved with engineering, and they fund various learning mechanisms such as Duolingo. But I want to point out their portfolio because I think that's what's kind of important here. So as you can see, they are invested in learning companies. 23andMe is a really big one with the DNA examples. It says here Duolingo and one other that Uber, also a big one there. And so at Masterclass. So yeah, as you can see, they have a lot of investments in these learning platforms. And I mean, looking through these, there is 23andMe is traded on the NASDAQ, which is good. And then Uber is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So I think this is going to be big for this company. Now, in of itself, I'm going to say I don't really, I can't say I care too much. This company itself, you know, they're fine. They're not a game changer, I don't think. Now, I think holding this many companies in their portfolio is pretty big. I think that, you know, it could be significant to this company itself. I do not know if they are traded publicly. I don't think they are. Actually, in fact, let's just take a look just to see. And they're not. So they're not a publicly traded company. If they do become one, this would be interesting. I do think so. But that's a different conversation. So with their holdings in Duolingo, you know, I didn't look through each of these. Obviously, there are a lot of good companies here. Everybody knows Course Hero. Everybody knows Uber. And everybody knows Masterclass. You see those ads on YouTube all the time. And so there's a lot of big companies here that are invested in it. And they're pretty good looking. But at the same time, you just, you know, it doesn't matter really. I mean, it does and it does not. Their investments in these are not going to affect Duolingo too much. I mean, they hold 20%, but at the end of the day, so they hold 1/5 the votes. But I don't think it's super significant. What I do want to point out is if you scroll down here, this is where I think the more interesting details start to appear. And so it's kind of a bit of a ways down. Okay, so this one right here, the underwriters, they said, we, the selling stockholders and underwriters named below, have entered into an underwriting agreement with respect to the shares of our Class A common stock being offered. Subject to certain conditions, each underwriter has severely agreed to purchase the number of shares of our Class A common stock indicated in the following table. And who is the head? Goldman Sachs. This right here, this is the big thing. This is the one that I think is interesting. Goldman Sachs, I mean, if they are actually getting invested in Duolingo, that's going to be big. And it's not just that. I mean, they have Raymond James, JMP, William Blair is just investment banker after investment banker after investment banker. So these are really big. This could be significant for the price of the stock itself. Now, we'll have to see what happens upon the IPO. We don't know what the price is to be expected. I'm honestly expecting Duolingo to put out a bit of a higher price than they're actually worth. And, you know, obviously I understand that there's a whole bunch of factors that go into what the IPO is actually worth. But I think we might be thinking, you know, it might be a little bit higher than what it's actually worth. But I think if all these investment banks put money into it, it can be pretty big. But there's one more thing that I wanted to point out. So on these documents, they do have to put their accounting numbers in their accounting documents. And what I noticed was not good, in my opinion. You know, it's obviously things can change. They say they've reported revenue and so, but their balance sheets say otherwise. As far as I can see, the statement of operations, comprehensive loss, they've reported loss 2 years in a row. So 2 years in a row, they've reported loss on the company. And now their cash flows are showing positive through financing activities end of the year, which is good. But the thing is, it was over on, I believe it's on their balance sheet. The one thing that stood out to me, it was right here. Not last year, they reported almost $55,000 in deferred revenues, which is not great. The fact that the company holds money that doesn't necessarily belong to them initially is concerning to me. The fact that $55,000 could disappear from their balance sheet is a big number. And if you look through all these, it goes into a lot more detail of what it is, like where the money exactly is going, more or less. Not exactly, not precisely, because they don't have to report that, but it gives a little bit more detail about what's happening. And, as I said, the company's reported income, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with the concept that there's so much of it in deferred revenue. There's so much of it that's not necessarily present in the company itself. And so, if that falls through at any point, I mean, that's going to be bad for one. And, obviously if they get these investors on board, no problem. It'll be fine, I suppose. It's going to be money that they owe now to the investors, but, it's better to owe money to Goldman Sachs as opposed to someone who we don't really know. And so, do with that as you will. I'm a little skeptical of this. I'm just seeing that I think that the app itself is sustainable. Well, I know it is actually. It's a sustainable app. And as far as the IPO goes, I think it'll be all right. But again, I can't really say more until we get an actual price on it. But there's just things here that I'm seeing that I'm not too sure about, as far as just not a lot of promising initial investors prior to IPO, and also the fact that there's so much in deferred revenue. That's just a lot of money that's backlogged, that's not really in the company itself right now. I just wonder why there's not more being invested in this exact moment. Obviously, there could be various reasons, and I'm not saying that Duolingo is a bad company whatsoever. I just have concerns going forwards as an investor, what this could mean. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think I'm like spot on with this. Maybe I'm a bit off. Maybe I'm off. My last video about IPOs kind of blew up there. So let's see if we can get that. Let's see if we can get this back up to that one. Clear did recently go public. They have their shares out. So, if you want to go ahead and compare their existing company to, or their existing share price to what I talked about, go ahead and do that, see where I line up. And as always, thanks so much for all the support. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon for future videos so you don't miss any. And I will see all of you guys again in the next video.